Hello and welcome to PerchPeek Pods, the only show where you get in-depth interviews with some of the world's leading global mobility experts. I'm Paul, founder of PerchPeek, the modern way to relocate employees, and today I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by Vijay Madani, Senior Manager of HR Optimization and Advisory at RBC. Vijay, introduce yourself to the community and tell us a little bit about how you fell into the world of mobility.
Absolutely. Paul, thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity at the outset. It's such a pleasure to be here, to be talking on this podcast. Let me just start off introducing myself to your point. So I'm Vijay Madani. I come into the industry with roughly about 19 years of experience, both in HR operations, shared services, and also global mobility to be specific, the past about 15 years. My current role is that of leading the HR optimization from a mobility perspective and also advisory from a mobility perspective again, right? Prior to that, I've been associated with organizations like Deloitte, Target, HSBC, and OpenText. So it's been a wide array of companies in different sectors. So I find myself to be privileged to have garnered that experience. Thanks for having me on the show.
Not at all. And what an incredible array of experience you have. And tell us a little bit about your current team setup at RBC and the program there.
Right. So currently, we at RBC, we basically, are a team of global mobility experts. I would say we have a great set of talented people put together from different parts of the job market. What we do is primarily deal with operations pertaining to short-term business travels, long-term assignments, short-term assignments, permanent transfers, and so on, and also manage a remote work program. And not just the operations again, we also do a great deal of advisory. Okay, and RBC, as mammoth as it is, and with all of the strides that it's making in the market, global mobility's role has never been so critical before. We are moving from what you used to be called an operations service delivery team to a strategic partner day in and day out. So that's what we do. That's what earns us our daily bread.
Yeah, I love it. And that all-important daily bread. And one of the reasons I was so keen to talk to you is you're one of the most thoughtful people I know when it comes to your personal progression within the mobility world, but also your team's progression. And obviously, as mobility becomes more important within RBC, which is great to hear, that succession planning and coaching your team up is going to become even more important. I know you're one of the leading thinkers on the industry on this. So tell us a little bit about how you think about setting your team up for success and positioning them to progress their careers.
Right. I think it's really important. When we're talking about setting the team up for success, and also I think this question is of twofold. Setting the team up for success and also investing in their careers to make sure that you identify leaders from within them, because nobody would join an organization to stay stagnant. They would want to grow. The organization grows. So as a leader, I start with something as simple as an individual development plan. Okay. Now, what do I mean by this? I mean by, the investment of a leader to an individual development that begins with identifying where that individual is today. Okay, understand the strengths of the person, understands the areas of development, and see what is it that as a leader, one can do to make sure that you are bringing up the topmost potential, using the people to their utmost capabilities. A few things that can be done while we do that here is, once we chalk out a structure, right? You chalk out a structure as to what is the development plan going to look like, and you identify some of the areas that the individual can really do better on. as a leader, you invest. As a leader, you kind of help the team figure out what are those various avenues that they can venture into to harness their competencies, harness their skills. Now, this could be learning modules, this could be job rotation, this could be job shadowing, this could be mentorship, even outside of your team. Okay. Now, that's how you kind of start off. Of course, I would add that there should be a structure to it, right? There should be a timeline defined to it, and how you break it down into milestones and start knocking off one after the other by having a regular periodic review, because you just don't want to, figure out a plan on the paper and leave the team in limbo. No, you got to step in from time to time and say, hey, how's it going? Are we progressing the way we thought that we would? And that's where the monitoring and controlling piece comes into play.
Yeah.
So that's how I would basically look at it to start with, Paul.
Well, I love the review part, but I think one of the things I really wanted to jump into is mobility, and teams are often quite small. Often, there's not going to be room within mobility.
Correct.
I know something community just sort of GM folk often ask is like, how can I support my team if they want to move on to other roles within the organization? Tell us a little bit about where you've seen success in helping people transition out of GM into other roles if there hasn't been sort of upward progression within the GM space.
Right. You bring up a very, very valid point, because more often than not, we see that global mobility teams are really small. They are definitely high impact teams, niche teams, but then they are small. So that definitely poses a challenge in terms of their progression, right? So it's important to identify what are the transferable skills that individuals bring to the table. Nobody's born with just mobility know-how. People during their experience, they would have garnered so many other skills and competencies. It could be, being good with project management. It could be being great with data analysis. It could be great with communicating, right? It could be fantastic with problem solving and negotiating. Now, it's very, very important that for me as a leader to understand what, apart from the generic mobility know-how, the individual carries. Now, that will be a separate quota of my identification of the skills that can be transferable.
Yeah.
Now, what we got to do is that as a part of the progression, right? Once we identify that, individuals are open to explore other avenues, I would say that, okay, now let's figure out where do you want to be, right? So I'm a part of a total rewards delivery team that deals with compensation, numbers, and so on.
Yeah.
So, let's see if we can assess them, grab roles in the wider HR with those transferable skills being put to use. Yeah.
And if I was to put you on the spot a little bit, Vijay, what are some of the roles that you've seen mobility folks most successfully transfer into? Where do you think mobility can shine outside of the simple space?
Right. I would say that, mobility often comes with a lot of ambiguity, in the sense that, things are not really in place. You got to deal with that on a day-on-day basis, and ambiguity gives opportunity, right, Paul? So one of the, elements that I have seen that, people in mobility are good with is basically identifying a solution, putting together, rather, let me just backtrack a bit. Identifying an issue, identifying an opportunity, putting together a potential solution, and then understanding how that solution can be put into place or implemented by bringing into consensus different stakeholders. Now, this, at a very, very, very high level, I would say, is a potential project management skill, right?
Yes.
You talk about an objective, you talk about the problem statement, you talk about what could be an ideal solution, stakeholder involvement, and now, bang, now let's come up with a solution, right? I would say that, one of these skills is that of managing a project. The other one also, I talk about the, decision-making ability with cost-conscious memory, a cost-conscious mind. Why would I say that?
Yeah.
We in mobility are often pushed for exceptions. You may have a very solid policy, but still not everybody is happy with what you have. So exceptions. Now, when we deal with exceptions, we talk about numbers, we talk about costs, we talk about, how to basically make it work so that there is a balance of business and talent together. Now, this basically gives a fine balance of if a person is able to crack this, right? That to me tells me that he has a very fine balance of managing business, negotiating with the talent, right? And at the same time, ensuring that the bottom line is not hit massively so that, the cost also is being taken care of. So I would say it's an all-round ability to manage a business with the acumen in place. So I would say this is also one of the top skills that can be used anywhere, not just in mobility.
Yeah. And I love that. And I think definitely, you roll up into a ward, that's a very common area for people to go. Mm-hmm. But some of those project management skills, I think people sleep on at times, but often there's so much scope for people to move into that. And the problem-solving nature of mobility is pretty unique within the sort of wider HR function. So definitely don't sleep on that. I wanted to jump in on that comment you made, that comment you made about business acumen. This is a bit of a sideball, but ultimately, within mobility, it's rarely coming from mobility's budget. So to some extent, what do costs matter? How do you try and coach your team on understanding the business context behind some of the decisions?
Right. So I would say that firstly, I would want my team to understand that we are not just serving our employees. End of the day, we are basically providing service to our employees who impact our wider customers outside. So indirectly, if we are not able to, place a person in the right place at the right time, we are talking about impacting the business. That is a known fact.
Yeah.
Now, how to your question, how do I help my team understand the piece? Is that basically, I believe the core competence or the core expectation of any global mobility advisor is to provide that best optimal strategic solution to the business, right? I know that it's not going from global mobility's budget. I know it's a business's budget, but mind you, you cannot be a strategic partner to the business if you do not think about the business's bottom line. So that's where the balance comes into, okay? Let's get the right talent. Let's apply the right policy, but see where these both meet in terms of costs. And that's where you, my friend, play a major role as a mobility consultant.
Well, 100%. But how do you try and find that balance tactically? Because I think the people always say, but we have to give them this, or else their experience is going to be terrible. The business always says, but that costs so much money. Like, get into brass tacks for me, Vijay. How do you actually find that middle ground?
Okay, so I believe it's not easy always. I would say that, okay, because you could definitely find yourself in a spot wherein the business pushes you to say that, okay, it's end of the day, we are the revenue generating entity, right? So I believe that it's a progressive process, Paul, wherein, let's say, for instance, today I am dealing with exceptions in a particular area of my policy. Now, that is an opportunity for me to keep a track of what kind of exceptions we are talking about. Where are the business's asks and my policy, and what is the gap in between these two? Track, measure, and basically see what are the opportunities for the changes to be made in my upcoming policy review, right? So when we are talking about a balance, I would say that is a progressive exercise that can be done by making observations, tracking those exceptions. While you deal with it on a case-on-case basis, it's very important to see where we are heading in terms of trend, right? And if you see that there is a particular benefit, there is a particular area that the business is always finding it difficult to comply with, now that, my friend, is definitely an area for you to look into. I take that, look outside of the organization to see what is the industry doing differently.
Yes.
Okay.
100%.
Where can we match?
Yeah.
Right. And that will be my data point when I walk into my next policy review. And there you go, bang. I have that piece fixed and I'm ready for the next one. So that I believe, in simply put, is an exercise that can be progressively done with data in place, with industry benchmarking in place, and a review that anyways has to be done at some point in time.
Yeah, very nice. And Vijay, policy review. You mentioned it a couple of times there. I know RBC, almost 100,000 employees, 60 plus offices. I know you've just gone through a big policy review internally. Tell me about the process of trying to get your team to buy into that process when it's so much change and it's so much easy just to look at that as what a lot of work this is going to be.
Right. So I think it's very important to ensure that your team is on board. Okay.
Yes.
But I would say it can be simple as well if the team is involved in it right from the word go. Because, I would say that the question in itself may have an answer sometimes, because your team are the ones who are in the front line. They are the face. They are the people facing the business, and understanding from them the nitty-gritties of why there is a disagreement or a gap in terms of the expectation of a policy. So there you go. Your team has already been a part of the process. Okay. Yes. They are the ones bringing to you saying that, hey, listen, here is a particular business who doesn't want to pay this benefit. Or, here is a case 1, case 2, and case 50. Looks like there is a trend there, right? Now that is the data point, right? So I believe your team has been traveling through, and that's what I call it, a participative change management right from the word go. Okay, they have the skin in the game. They are your people who are recommending that change. And when at the time of the policy review, when we are involving different stakeholders, right? We have the functions, we have the tax, we have the privacies, we have the benefits, and so on. Your team is already aware of what you're asking them. So when the change is being made, they are the people who are going to carry it to the employees. So you don't have to worry about it. So as a leader, I believe that gives a very good segue into how do you lead a change. I think, that's how I believe, most of the successful teams administrate.
And Vijay, I pretend I'm the global mobility leader at SDC Bank that I've just made up, and I'm sort of thinking, God, I've got this change coming up. How far in advance are you getting that feedback from the team? Is it a year in advance? Is it, and how are you getting that feedback?
Okay, I would get that feedback from the team on a case basis as and when they see something coming up, Paul. We've been seeing a trend, let's say, particularly in a specific country combination, right? During our periodical team meetings, right? The team basically discusses that. Okay. In a region specific updates. So we keep talking about that. So if your question is that how is it that we are getting those updates, I would say that basically happens ad hoc, instantly, as and when the cases come. However, the trick here is to track them out. The trick here is to not just solve it and move on, but see how is it trending, because that will be helpful for you to consolidate and see, here you go, probably this is where we got to review the policy bit.
I love that. So sort of ongoing basis, that's actually then leading to some of the policy change. On the other side of things, sometimes it might be the exceptions that you mentioned there. Tell us a bit about your philosophy around exceptions, because I think that's something that the community is quite divided on. Sometimes people are like, exceptions are good, it's fine. Other times it's like, no, we want to minimize them. What's your philosophy on them, having just done a big change?
Right. My philosophy with the exceptions would be that they are inevitable. Okay.
Nice. I like that.
My philosophy is that, exceptions to a policy makes you rather gives you an opportunity to stand up as a stronger consultant and advisor. Because if that's not going to happen, Paul, believe me, they just follow the policy like a book, like the Bible, and they don't need you. They don't need you.
Yeah.
So you see, so it's really, really important. So my philosophy is that exceptions are inevitable, and that definitely keep us in our jobs. So what some of the companies they take approaches like core flex policy. Okay? Core flex policy has been popular, at least in the last few years. Companies have been trending towards that. They're actually implementing, because that gives an opportunity for the business now to decide, hey, here are some core elements from a duty of care perspective. You got to provide the employee. But based on your budget, based on the talent, based on what you negotiate with the employee, these are your discretionary benefits. Now, what I see is that an approach like this, right? Well, I'm not saying it's exception proof, no, but at least an approach like this will basically help the companies move towards reducing exceptions. Because if once in the policy, right, it is not considered an exception because you have already budgeted for, signed for it. And you see, a core flex is one of such approaches that the companies are adapting to. And I believe that is helping us go a long way.
Yes. Well, and then the next one on that is sort of coming full circle. Aligned on flexibility, reducing exceptions, because it's just, there's less like, I don't want this, can I have that? For sure. Tell me though, one of your team has a senior exec moving around, they're asking for some exception, they want something that's not in the policy. Difficult situation to say no in that situation. How do you try and develop your team to handle that? You say it keeps you in a job, which is good.
Which is good, yeah.
What advice do you have to people who are facing exceptions and maybe want to say no to them occasionally?
Great question. I think it's important for the team to be equipped with what is it that they got to say. I think education is so very important, even if it's an executive. An executive, yes, but it need not be that the individual is aware of the policy or the guidelines that are stipulated within the organization. So I think, I would equip my team with all of the ammunition that they need to educate the individual in the first place.
Yeah.
Okay.
What is that? If I was to jump in there, Vijay,
sure.
What are the tools of the mobility? Well, what is that?
Absolutely. So there are a few here that I can list. One is a robust standard operating procedure that basically not just talks about how you do the job, also talk about why you do it the way you do it, right? What are the regulations attached to it? What are the pros and cons attached to it? And what are the different scenarios, the nuances that basically make the policy what it is? So that is one thing. The other is, primarily what we do is a very exhaustive policy summary questions, wide list of questions, frequently asked questions, which we would have gathered from time to time from, different experiences. And when we see an odd scenario, the team goes back and says that, did we do this? Let's say, for example, we are talking about moving somebody from Canada to US, and here is an executive, right? Having a very strange situation, okay, wherein we do not support, let's say, for example, hypothetically, okay, we do not support dependent education, let's say, for that situation, but it's an executive. How do we deal with it? Did we do it in the past? So they go to that tool and see, hey, we did this in the past. Oh, yeah, looks like it is possible. However, we need approvals from 1, 2, 3, 4. However, here are the options from A, B, C, D. See if we can cut down on any other benefits and ask another question. Hey, listen, do you already do you own a home in your principal country? And he says, yes. Do you maintain that home? Yes. You pay rent for it? Yes. Oh, bingo. You know what? In your host country now, you need not pay a housing norm deduction. We are not going to deduct anything from you.
Yeah.
Why don't we use that budget, a bit of it, towards your dependent education? Now, there you go, a situation.
Okay.
Now, how did they get to that?
I like it.
They have gone through some past scenarios, which we would have collected over a period of time. So that's another tool, I would say. So,
Yes.
and finally, thirdly, we also go to the vendors to say that, hey, listen, here we have, we have strong association with some of the vendors for years together. They know the history with RBC. They know how the policy has moved and evolved. So they are able to give us good sense and insight into those situations, which can be tricky. And then we kind of take it from there. So that's how the team is equipped. And if nothing works, that basically goes further for an exception, an escalation, and additional budgeting. So that's the last resort.
I love it. Couple of playbacks then. So using data to help justify that decision, using a little bit of total budget, zero sum, can we take budget from here to there? And then ultimately not making it a sort of a he said, she said, but saying, hey, look, this is the history around exceptions and using that
Absolutely.
policy there. Where do you think? I know you've seen a few different team structures around mobility. Where do you think sort of the structure of mobility teams is going to evolve over the next 5 years? Like, what's going to change?
I would say that the way I look at it today is that, Paul, the mobility teams are, let me take it back, right?
Yeah.
One of my earlier organizations had mobility teams sized from, 30 to 35. And then I've also managed teams that have about 15 people, 10 to 15 people. And now, the team size is only shrinking. Okay.
Yes.
Now, let me come back to your question if I'm not answering it to your satisfaction.
Yeah.
But the way I see it is that the way the mobility teams are going to be compositioned and also positioned as more of strategic thinkers and contributors versus a volume-driven processing analysts. Now, why do I say this? Is because more and more of the talent we are now getting from the market are the people who are already coming with great operational mindset. The new talent. It's rather easy to set up a process in running with them. Okay, that is a given. Now, what we are trying to put together are people who come with the ability to strategically advise, optimize the way we run a program. So I would say that from a band of people, now I think as we progress further with the changing landscape outside, with the changing regulatory norms outside, countries are going through great evolution in terms of immigrational patterns, the benefit patterns, and the companies cutting down on their costs or managing their costs differently. I see mobility teams to be more of a few number of great experts from a strategy perspective than hundreds of people who will just come together to process a particular transaction. So that's how I see the mobility teams transforming.
I love it. And then to challenge you, great answer. So becoming more strategic over time. You'll speak to the people listening to this saying, hey, I want to become more strategic. What's one bit of advice you would give to someone who wants to develop their strategic capabilities over the next few years?
Right. I would say strategy starts with knowledge. You need to know something in order to strategize something.
I love that.
Right. Imagine if you were asking me to come up with a strategy to run country's army differently. I don't think I can do that. I know nothing about it. All right. I think it's important. So it starts with knowledge, and then comes experience. Okay. Now, as a leader, it's important while you have people who have the know-how of mobility. It's important to do those trial runs, as I call them. Deputize them, place them on those files which can be tricky, which will push them to think differently.
Yeah.
Okay. Now that's how you would train your team to think. So I would say if I'm an employee, I would go to my leader and say that, hey, listen, looks like this is a pretty unusual VIP executive file. Can I handle this? I'll come back to you if I have questions, but can I deal with this? Now, that's my way of training myself to be strategic, because what I'm then doing is that I'm adding on to my experience, right? And my knowledge. To my knowledge, I'm adding my experience, and I'm handling an unusual case. The next time it comes, I know strategically how my brain should think.
I love it.
Right?
Yeah.
And as a leader, I believe that you need to identify your top people on the team who could be a succession as well, right? Sometimes you identify your leaders, your upcoming people, give them those trial runs of handling unusual cases. There you are basically building your pool of strategic partners, strategic advisors. I think it's a journey, and that's how I would basically put it, that we can achieve it. Yeah.
Two great takeaways for me coming out of that, amongst a lot of knowledge. One, I think sometimes people think strategy, just sit there, think about it, or read a book, whatever. I love that. Learn by doing. Take on more work outside of your comfort zone, because then you accumulate that knowledge and that pattern matching over time. And that is so, look for opportunities to sort of develop that skill set. They're not just going to come to you. So love that. Secondly, that sort of top-down, bottoms-up approach, that's on the team member to do it. But also as a leader, how do you then try to give stretch work to your team who can potentially handle it and step up and take your role when you get that promotion or when you move on to the next role? So absolutely love all that. Vijay, we're rattling through. One of the great sort of traditions we have on the pod is we always ask previous guests to leave a question for the next guest. And you've got a one that I feel everyone in the world of global mobility has a story about a crazy relocation that's happened, or a crazy situation, or a crazy request. So what I want to know from you, Vijay, what our previous guest wants to know is, what is the strangest request you've ever received around the relocation?
Well, I would say it's not purely on relocation.
Okay.
But if I may give it a bit of a different twist and say that it's more after relocating the person. Now, here was an assignee that we have relocated to. It was back in India. Okay, so the individual has moved from, I believe it was from the UK to India, and we received a call from the assignee one day saying that I want you guys to come home, and I have something really, really urgent to show you. I'm disappointed. I said, okay, let's see, right? I sent my vendor there, only to find out that the wall was seeping. Okay. There was a bit of damage that was done to the carpet. Yeah. Well, it may sound, Paul, it's really simple. So what is really strange about it? The assignee was saying, this is my grandma's carpet. I need it to be replaced the way it is. It's damaged completely, right? And we are talking about a seasoned employee, right? This person wanted us to basically repair the carpet. The carpet was beyond repair. This person, we kind of offered an array of solutions. We said, so the vendor has mentioned. So we were actually working with Santa Fe then, and that was one of our vendors, and And, they tried everything to kind of clean the carpet, repair the carpet. Nothing worked. And that there was an emotional connect. And that's what I'm trying to say here. There's an emotional connect that every assignee basically has for their move. And for this individual, she has literally shipped the carpet because it was her grandma's gift. We could not do anything to it. We could not do anything. We could only say that our apologies. We didn't anticipate the wall to be seeping and the carpet to be damaged. It was very, very strange. We were okay to replace, but then no, we could not do anything. It was so very strange. So very strange.
It's strange. Was there a happy ending, Vijay? Or was it just
yes.
You had
no. So what we have done is then, fortunately, we were able to find someone who was able to kind of repair the carpet for her to her satisfaction. Man, I must give it away to the employee, saying that we were ready to reimburse how much of a money it is to get a new one, right? But then, luckily, we were able to find someone in the market who was able to fix it for her. Okay.
Yeah.
And she has been kind not to be way too rigid as well on that one. But then the stress that my team has gone through handling that piece was really, really way too much for them to handle back then.
Yeah.
So I would only sum it up saying that strange scenarios do come, Paul. They become strange because they are more emotional. When they are more emotional, when they are more personal, because it's
100%.
If it's a budget, you can pay for it. If it's emotion, you just have to stand by the employee, empathize, and give them the time to understand the situation and come back. Yeah, that's it.
Exactly. The best and the worst thing about our industry, right, is it's personal. It's a big deal. It's someone's life, and so these things do happen. But it's amazing that you managed to reach a happy ending. And what a story that is. Vijay, thank you so much for coming on, being so generous.
My pleasure.
Your insight into global mobility teams. I know so many people would have loved hearing about helping your team progress, helping to lead them through that change. So thank you so much for being so generous with your time. If you're listening and you enjoy these podcasts, please do share them with a friend, like it, give us 5 stars on Spotify or Apple. Vijay, until the next time, thanks very much.
It's fantastic, Paul. Thank you so much for having me on this one. It's been a great pleasure to be featured on this one, chat with you and share some of my experiences and also listen from you. So until we meet again, Paul, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Chat soon, Vijay. Bye-bye.
Bye.